Okay, let's talk about this cool case of a subarachnoid hemorrhage. This was a young female who presented to the emergency department with sudden onset of severe headache, the worst of her life. It began about 3 hours prior to arrival while she was just resting. It involves her entire head and quickly became 10 out of 10 pain. She also is experiencing nausea, vomiting, and sensitivity to light. She has no neck stiffness, fever, chills. She has no visual disturbances. She has no focal deficits, and she has no recent injuries. She denies any medical history. She does not typically get headaches. She does not use drugs. And she's on an oral contraceptive. Her last menstrual period was 1 week ago. On exam, her temp is 97.8, pulse 93, blood pressure 119/70, respiratory rate 17, O2 sat 100% on room air. She's well nourished and well hydrated, but she is lethargic and she appears very uncomfortable. HENT is normal, neck is normal, cardiovascular and respiratory normal. Jumping to neuro, she is somnolent, but she is easily aroused. She's oriented times 3. Her cranial nerves are intact. Her strength is intact. Sensation is intact. She had no pronator drift, dysmetria on finger to nose testing. In the ED, an IV is placed. She is given morphine and ondansetron for her headache. Her labs initially are reassuring, including a complete blood count, a metabolic panel, creatinine, glucose, coag studies. She was not pregnant, and a CT scan without contrast was ordered. So let's talk about subarachnoid hemorrhage. This is a neurological emergency in which the bleeding in the CSF fills the spaces around the brain. 80% of these cases occur due to aneurysmal rupture. And it's a very important consideration in patients presenting to the emergency department with headache. It represents about 1% of patients, and it represents about 10% of patients who present with a severe sudden onset headache in a normal neuro exam. In the United States, there's about 30,000 cases per year. And then here on the right, we have an illustration of an aneurysm, right? It's kind of a silly illustration, it's just a circle, but you get the idea, which is basically that the blood is sort of pooling in a place where it shouldn't be, which puts tension on the wall of the arterial vessel, and that can rupture spontaneously and cause subarachnoid hemorrhage, which is the most common cause. Risk factors include Black, Latino, postmenopausal women, alcohol, tobacco, and cocaine use, family history, oral contraception, hypertension, polycystic kidney disease, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, neurofibromatosis. Activities which create a Valsalva reflex or response, which includes bowel movements, heavy lifting, sexual activity. On the right here, we see different types of intracranial hemorrhage to help just illustrate. So subarachnoid hemorrhage is down here, and you can't really tell, but this is bleeding into the brain, essentially. An epidural hematoma is above the dura mater, and that's usually a lenticular shaped and is a brisk arterial bleed. Subdural hematoma is below the dura mater. That's usually a more concave or moon-like shape, crescent shape here that is sort of can be acute but bleeds a little bit more slowly, sort of considered a venous bleed. You have intracerebral hemorrhage, in which the bleeding starts inside the brain spontaneously or traumatically, and then you can bleed into the ventricles as well. So there's a bunch of types of ways to bleed in the skull. Patients typically present with a sudden severe headache that they will characterize as the worst of their life, with nausea, vomiting, neck pain, photophobia, and in severe cases, altered consciousness. On exam, they will have retinal hemorrhages, nuchal rigidity, restlessness, decreased alertness. Sometimes they have focal deficits, but not typically. And the miss rate is very high on initial presentation because they generally have a good neuro exam. On the right here, we have an illustration of some of the classic findings. So sudden severe headache, the patient appears very uncomfortable. They may have a transient altered level of consciousness all the way down to a deep coma kind of range. They have signs of meningeal erythema and irritation. So you see Koenig sign here and Brodzinski's sign. And then down here, they're sort of showing the illustration of a lumbar puncture. And some things that suggested is that the blood is consistent through all the vials. Here you have xanthochromia, which is basically bilirubin leaking into the CSF. And then if the blood is traumatic, you expect it to clear by the third or fourth vial. And so this would be this third example is where they don't have subarachnoid hemorrhage. Okay, diagnosis typically made with head CT, which is extraordinarily sensitive. In some cases, there's some literature that says maybe a dry scan is not enough, and so an angiography, CTA, can be considered, which is basically 100% diagnostically accurate, both sensitive and specific. It really provides a really good anatomic delineation of the arterial vasculature of the cerebrum in the brain and can find any source of bleeding or presence of bleeding. Lumbar punctures were historically used. Again, you count the RBCs from tube 1 to 4. Those should go down normally if there was a traumatic puncture. Xanthochromia is bilirubin breakdown. You want to measure the opening pressure. But lumbar punctures have fallen out of favor as CT angiography is less invasive and probably provides more information than just is it a bleed or is it not. The angio tells you where the aneurysm is. It tells you how much swelling there is, if it's something else like malignancy or infection or trauma. So it provides a lot more information. On the right here, we have the so-called star sign. So you can see blood in the basilar cistern forming what could be characterized as a star. Here's two of the bottom parts of the star. Here's the two arms and the head here. Okay, so that's a classic subarachnoid hemorrhage CT scan. Treatment, initially ABCs, right? If they're really sick, you just got to deal with that. So airway management, you got to treat the hydrocephalus, optimize blood pressure, seizure prophylaxis, vasospasm prophylaxis, treat their headache, right? If they're really uncomfortable, that can potentially just make things worse. If you need to control intracranial pressure, that's a neurosurgical intervention. And then if they're anticoagulated, you need to reverse that. These patients probably need to go to neuro ICU. So over here we have an illustration sort of the similar things: control blood pressure, reverse them. And then the question, of course, if you need to control the intracranial pressure or intervene somehow, there's a bunch of things available to the neurosurgeons. And then in the case of our patient, she was diagnosed with a spontaneous subarachnoid hemorrhage. Her CT showed diffuse subarachnoid hemorrhage with hydrocephalus and basilar cistern effacement, concerning for pending transtentorial herniation. So you can see her ventricles are enlarged here. You can see the subarachnoid blood in the basilar cistern, probably better on this image. On the lateral view, you can see the concern for herniation. She got worse in the ED. She was intubated. She went to the neuro ICU. She went to the OR with neurosurgery where she had a ventriculostomy. They coiled her stent, which was in the right MCA. They coiled her aneurysm with a stent, which was in the right MCA. And then she was extubated on hospital day 3 and continued to improve neurologically as she moved on to the outpatient setting. So let's talk about some key points for subarachnoid hemorrhage. This includes non-traumatic subarachnoid hemorrhage is a neurological emergency that typically presents with the worst sudden onset severe headache associated with nausea, vomiting, neck pain, photophobia, and in some cases loss or alteration of consciousness. Patients with suspected subarachnoid hemorrhage should have at least a non-con CT with a strong consideration for CT angiography, and less commonly in the modern era, a lumbar puncture is performed. Emergent treatment of subarachnoid hemorrhage includes close attention to the airway, breathing and circulation, pain and nausea control, efforts to prevent elevation of intracranial pressure, and prompt consultation with a neurosurgical specialist.